With Liquor Barn, you can shop your favorite bourbon, that perfect bottle of wine, or discover something new. To place an order for pickup or delivery, download the Liquor Barn app, visit liquorbarn.com, or call your nearest Liquor Barn location. Follow us on social media and subscribe to our email list for all the latest news on products, promotions, and events. Liquor Barn, where Kentuckians go to celebrate life. Cheers!
Hey there, I'm Carrie Van Winkle, founder of Pappy & Company, where we celebrate family heritage and Southern craftsmanship. Check out our curated collection of artisanal goods that embody the spirit of Kentucky. From our signature barrel-aged pepper sauce aged in Pappy Van Winkle bourbon barrels to our luxurious leather goods inspired by generations of tradition, each item reflects our commitment to quality and legacy. Our line of gourmet food items are thoughtfully selected to bring the taste of the South to your table. Indulge in what I can say is the best bourbon barrel-aged maple syrup on the planet. A perfect blend of buttery rich flavors that elevate any dish or cocktail. We're big fans of the Bourbon Life Podcast, and we're honored to share the legacy of our great-grandfather Pappy Van Winkle with all of you. So visit pappyco.com for 15% off your purchase with code BourbonLife15.
Limestone Farms bourbons are like a secret portal to a world of rich flavors where high proof meets smooth satisfaction. Every barrel is meticulously crafted and blended with a specific message in mind. Experience clean delineated flavor profiles that will have you engaged from the first sip to the final drop, making your palate beg for just one more taste. Limestone Farms, bringing heritage home.
We're all familiar with finishing bourbon in wine barrels, but finishing in a rosé cask, now we're venturing into uncharted territory. For Penelope Bourbon, that uncharted territory lies in the southern Rhone region of France. Their rosé cask finish marries Penelope's straight bourbon whiskey with French Grenache rosé wine cask. The result is a unique aromatic blend of strawberry, floral, and herbal flavors. Take a sip of this one-of-a-kind bourbon at penelopebourbon.com.
Welcome to the Bourbon Life Podcast, your source for all things bourbon. Join your hosts, Mark and Matt, as they drink and review bourbons, share news about upcoming events, interview the who's who in the bourbon world, and, most importantly, bring you along for the fun of living the bourbon life. Now, here's your hosts, Mark and Matt.
All right, everybody, welcome back for another episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me here live tonight in the Bourbon Life studios, it is my good friend, Matt. Matt, how you doing out there, man?
Mark, I am doing great out here. How are you, my friend?
He caught me mid-drink. I'm doing great, Matt. Living it up here in the control center. You know, we're back on Squadcast here, doing our recording session with a remote guest. It's kind of fun because, you know, I forget, you know, we do the recordings live with our guests sometimes in the studios, and we go a few weeks and do that, and then we get back on Squadcast, and it's almost like I have to figure things out again. I mean, I've only been doing this 4.5 years, Matt. You think by now I would remember how to do this, but
no, it gives you,
I'm getting old.
A reason to re-gizmo in there.
Re-gizmo, that's right. Gizmo is always going to gizmo.
Yeah, Gizmo,
you know, that's
gizmo.
the way I'm exactly right, Matt. I think it just means I'm getting old, Matt, unfortunately. So yeah, unfortunately, nothing I can do about that. It's better than the alternative, right? So what can I say about that? We are the Bourbon Life Podcast presented by Liquor Barn. We appreciate their support. We appreciate the support of all of our sponsors. We cannot bring you this show each week without those guys. So thank you all for everything that you do for us, our sponsors. We love you guys and really appreciate you. And with that said, Matt, let's just go ahead and jump right into the show. You want to tell everybody who we have with us tonight?
Let's do it. Joining us this morning, this afternoon, this evening, whenever it is you are getting your Bourbon Life Podcast, we are headed down to Clarksville, Tennessee, to Old Glory Distilling Company, and we have with us the founder, Matt Cunningham. Matt, welcome on to the Bourbon Life Podcast.
Thanks so much for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, we're happy to have you, man. Been looking forward to this one. Had it lined up for a couple of weeks now, and got our bottles in, man. So we're thrilled. And I'm going to just be honest, for transparency purposes, I've never had your products before. I've heard of you guys, but have never had it. So I'm looking forward to jumping in and learning more about you guys and you personally as well, Matt. But also tasting your products. I know seen some releases and some awards you guys have won recently. We'll talk about that as well. But really looking forward to this, man. So thanks so much for joining us. And we talked about this off air, but we got two Matts, so it's going to be like, hey, Matt, what's up? It's going to be a fun show tonight for sure. No doubt about it. So Matt C from Old Glory. Tell us what we're going to be drinking on this first round, if you would, man.
Yeah. So first, we're drinking on the Tennessee Whiskey bottled in bond. There you go.
Yeah.
So this is some product that is all 5 years old. That's the distillation season that these barrels were pulled from. These are all 5-year-old barrels. So I don't know how deep we want to dive into it. We can get really technical if you want.
Man, you get as technical as you want. People love to hear that stuff. So
yeah. So this was all pot distilled. We started off on a 500-gallon pot still, Vendome pot still. The way that this particular product was produced that we're drinking today was with on a pot still in conjunction with a 4-plate column and a defumator at the top of that 4-plate column. It is offset, so we can utilize it or not. But for this bottled and bond that we're drinking, that 4-plate column was utilized in a single pass. This was produced by my brother, myself, and Nick Dykus, who Nick was our very first employee, and he's now our director of distillery operations. So he runs the distillery now. But the three of us produced these particular barrels 5 years ago.
Okay.
So it was a lot of fun. Mash bill wise, it's 73% corn, 19% wheat, and 8% malted barley. So it is a Tennessee whiskey. So it is maple charcoal filtered. Still could be a technical bourbon. But
Matt, don't say that.
Some of the Tennessee guys won't admit that. But the maple charcoal filtering definitively has an effect. And so this is a true Tennessee whiskey. And it is also, like all of our products, is sweet mashed. So we don't sour mash. Tennessee whiskey is one that is famous for being a sour mash. But we do not utilize the sour mash process. We sweet mash. So every single batch that we cook, it's all starts from scratch. So.
Wow. Okay. That's we'll come back to that later. That's a big thing, and I was unaware of that with you guys, man. So that's
yeah, no kidding.
That's a big topic.
Got hit with a lot of really great information there.
Sorry,
I feel like
there.
No,
dude, that's great
in the
man.
best way possible. Like a lot of great rabbit holes and questions come about on this.
Yeah,
I think that Mark and I both were not expecting.
Yeah,
I mean, first off, if you don't mind my asking, how important was it to you to have a bottled and bond?
It's when we decided that we were gonna start the distillery. If we didn't make it, then we weren't going to sell it. Mm-hmm. And so that bottled and bond was where we were moving towards and set out to be from day one, because of that designation of it came from this facility straight from scratch, and that's all of our products, not just bottled and bond. So that was kind of the pie in the sky that we were working towards for so long. Mm-hmm. And then, when we hit that minimum 4 years, you're obviously excited about it at that point. But we didn't really feel like it was ready until we could really dump those 5-year-old barrels. So that's where we did wait a while until we had a consistent supply of 5-year-old.
Man, that's a huge commitment. I mean, that's crazy huge.
It wasn't easy. There's an entrepreneurial story with it too. It's just you figure out ways to keep laying down barrels, because if you stop, then in a few years you're going to have this gap. Mm-hmm. And so in our business model, we tried so many different things as various revenue streams, some that have stuck around, some that have evolved. And ultimately just trying to make sure we at least laid down X number of barrels a year, trying to grow.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Matt, I see you over there nosing on it, man. So what are you picking up on this Tennessee whiskey that could otherwise be called bourbon technically.
I really like the nose. I think it's really sweet. It's really soft and rounded out. There's a good influence from the corn and also the wheat that come across. Usually, sometimes for me, wheat can be almost a little overpowering. It brings like a lot of those bread notes. Sometimes I pick up a lot of cherry or red fruit with it. But here, I think it balances out really well and just plays with a nice sweetness on the corn. Sort of gives it this savory, baked good type aroma. To me, it's like baked, it's like sweet baked goods, almost like cinnamon roll, cinnamon bread type nose on it. Just really, really nice and sweet. I think that maple charcoal process really cuts through some of those funky or sometimes funky pot still notes that people can get off of pot still product. And I think it really helps to round the edges of the product out. It's just really, really nice on the nose. I was not expecting this to nose this way for a Tennessee whiskey product. I guess I had some preconceived notions of what I was expecting out of a Tennessee whiskey, but this is really, really lovely.
Yeah, Matt, I agree. It's funny because you don't, you talk about the fruit, to me, it almost comes across like a strawberry. And sometimes I get that on Maker's Mark where, they get the red winter wheat in that. A lot of times I get like a strawberry, but you talk about the pastry. To me, it reminds me a lot like a sweet strawberry pastry of some form where you've got some strawberry filling or strawberry jam or strawberry donut, something like that, where you get that sweetness, almost like a glazed donut, but that confectioner sugar type of aroma as well, but also with that baked good kind of all thrown together there. I really like that. I think of Tennessee whiskey and I don't think of wheaters. Is that a standard thing? Are you guys the only one doing that, or are there other people out there doing that, Matt?
Yeah, we're not the only ones.
Okay.
So the two big name brands, Jack and George, those are obviously not wheated.
Right.
But there are a few other guys. I'd say the two of us that are doing it on a relatively large scale are probably us and Nelson's. You guys are familiar with Nelson's Greenbrier.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so they do a wheated Tennessee whiskey as well.
Okay. And that's odd because, I love those guys down at Nelson's and just I don't think I realized that it was wheated. I don't know why you'd think I would know that, but
and they've got a few variations.
Okay.
So they're Bell Mead product and Nelson Brothers product that they have out now. I know that those are all, I believe those are all rye bourbon. Okay. And so they're Tennessee whiskey, those are good.
I gotcha. So Matt, were there any other notes that the other Matt and I missed or we didn't throw out there? Anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you guys nailed our what I'll call standard tasting notes, and it was fun to hear you guys throw out some others too, and then picking those back up and pick them out. So yeah,
awesome. Well, I rely on Matt for most of that's his forte. He's very, very good at that. So Matt, let's talk about you, your background, because I know you've got a pretty interesting story. So if you would just take some time and kind of share with our listeners a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and then your background, education experience, and how you decided to become a distillery owner.
Yeah, and feel free to interject with a question or two. It's not a standard story by any means. So I grew up in Clarksville, Tennessee, where we're at, where the distillery is located, and I was the oldest of four. So I grew up in a family of six. Grew up here and loved Clarksville, but wanted to go experience another city somewhere else. I was never one of these kids that wanted to get out of his hometown by any means, but I wanted to go see what else was out there. And so when it came time to start looking for schools, I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. My dad was a developer, contractor all of his life, and was involved in various things. And so we grew up in those family businesses. And that was, I didn't really realize it. You always hear like, it's in your blood. And you're like, oh, well, maybe I just don't know what that feels like. But it was in my blood. And so I ended up going to school at the University of Arkansas, I wanted to go somewhere out of state, and somewhere with a great business program. I knew I would end up doing something in the business world. What I thought I wanted to do was go work on Wall Street. So that was that was my path. That was the path I was on. Even was in a pretty select portfolio management class at the Sam Walton College of Business, where we went to New York and got on the New York Stock Exchange floor on the trip and went and visited a bunch of investment banks. And as cool as that was one of those eye-opening trips that this was not what I wanted to do.
Yeah, sure.
It was way different than anything I was used to. And it was, that trip combined with a internship that I had my senior year at another wealth management company that I really realized that sitting at this desk in front of this computer wearing the shirt and tie was going to be where I was tethered to for the foreseeable future. And so I remember where I was at. I was walking up the hill I can't remember what class it was, but walking up the hill to the class, calling my dad, telling him I'm coming home after I graduate, but I'm coming home. And so that was my background through school. When I moved home after I graduated, I didn't totally know what I wanted to do. So I started working with my dad. He was building some houses at the time. So started working with him on his home building business. And I always had this little itch to be a firefighter. Like when I was a kid, every little kid wants to be a firefighter. And so, the article in the paper comes out, the fire department's hiring, going through their training, testing. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to give that a shot. I'm still young. I want to see if I can do this. So ended up getting hired on at the fire department. And I was there for a little over 4 years. And wow. Absolutely love that job. I still miss it. Every time I hear a fire truck going down the road,
squirrel.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's the best job in the world. And I don't know of any firefighter who will tell you anything different. And so, not to jump around too much, but during that time while I was working at the fire department, that schedule is 24 on, 48 hours off. Mm-hmm. And so during that 48 hours off, I was still working with my dad, but also putting together a business plan for what would eventually become Old Glory Distilling Company. And then ended up leaving the fire department reluctantly right about a month before we officially opened to the public. So kind of reality hit me in the face. I thought I was Superman when I was 22 years old and we opened this thing that I could do both. Like I'll be a firefighter 24 hours and the other 48 I'll be at the distillery. And that was a nice thought.
So Matt, wait, now, so you graduated from Arkansas, mm-hmm. And you guys got a mid-tier basketball coach down there now. That's all yeah. That's all I'm going to say about that. But.
Yeah. The proof will be in the pudding. I'm not sure how that one's going to end up. I hope it ends up well for the Hogs.
But they got you got the number one point guard, right? Did I just see that somewhere? You guys just picked him number one point guard. Yeah. Well, I think so. Man, oh man, working the magic. I mean, tell you what, man, it's crazy the recruiting, but we won't even go there. We could do a whole episode about basketball and bourbon. But anyway, man. So I'm just curious, when you decided that you're going to come back home, right? Were your parents like, what's going on? I'm like, what are you thinking? What are you doing?
No, my dad was excited, to be honest.
But, okay, cool. Yeah, nice.
And I don't think he jumped out of his shoes when I called him, but I know the conversations, quickly got exciting about, coming and helping him. When I got home.
So I have to ask this question, Matt, and we can talk about it more in terms of the actual creation of the distillery in round two.
Yeah.
As you went through the process, but I mean, were you like a home brewer or anything like that? I mean, was there something that you were doing that just, you're like, oh shit, this would be great to move this a little forward? Because a lot of guys we talk to are like, yeah, I went to college and I brewed beer and that was how I got myself beer for the weekends and, you know, whatever. Some of these guys even like messed around with some illegal distilling. I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you that question, but I mean, was it something that you were actually doing or just involved with or interested in?
When I got home from college, it was.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah. When I got
so
home,
you're moonshining in the backyard. I'm not going to say that. We don't have to put that on the record. You don't have to confirm it. Just blink twice if that is correct.
So it started off home brewing.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Started off home brewing. And when the idea I love bourbon and whiskey and trying the different variations of things I was new to, and so like that's what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to figure out.
Okay.
The home brewing obviously much more accessible, much more a lot more information out there about how to do that.
Yeah.
At home.
Yeah. And it's like you don't find a lot of well, of course now you do, but I guess back then there weren't you couldn't like get on the internet and be like, how do you distill your own whiskey at home?
No, you really couldn't. There was, you guys probably know about it. It's been so long since I've been on, but there was one forum that was a home distiller forum, and I'm not so sure it wasn't hosted in Australia. The site wasn't hosted in Australia or something, or New Zealand. I can't remember where, but somewhere where it was legal to do that, and so. That was the only information that was really out there at the time. And I still remember a few of the recipes that people were sharing around, the tried and true recipes, some of that. So.
Well, I mean, it's funny just because I was, looking for information, a little bit about you and your background. And I'm like, what was it? What in the world made this guy like leave, the finance career behind and leave the firefighting and then just say, hey, I'm just going to start a distillery. I'm like, there has to be a connection. There has to be something there. So I'm like, he had to be a home brewer or a home distiller. There had to be something that was going on that's not out there that I can't find. So, all right, now we know the rest of the story, man.
Yeah. But that's all, it really is a small piece of it too.
Sure. Yeah.
How you get your feet wet. But when I say I'm born and raised in Clarksville and I love this place, and that's the truth. I really wanted to bring something exciting to my hometown. That the community would rally around and get really excited about. And something that the community could call their own. We're a very large city, about 180,000 right now, and I say very large. It's not a metro of any size, but it's big enough where the city could really rally around
Sure,
something
yeah.
exciting. And we didn't have a whole lot of that a few years ago. When I moved home from school, there was one brew pub in town, and it had always been my favorite restaurant growing up. But other than that, there wasn't even really any craft breweries in town. And like I said, I had a genuine interest in bourbon. I was very curious about it, how it was made, what was in it. Just really got infatuated with it. And where I really got excited was on the actual production process of it.
Sure.
And that's where I went down the rabbit hole, and I really never came out.
I think that's great. I mean, I think that's awesome that you had a passion, you realized it, you went down that rabbit hole, and here you are, man. I mean, I think that's great that there's not enough people out there in this world, I think personally, that find something that they're passionate about and actually pursue it to the point that they're willing to walk away from what they're doing to decide that they want to make a difference and really pursue what they want to do. So kudos to you, man, for doing that. That's huge.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome. So Matt, let's jump back to the whiskey. Let's talk about what you get, because we're at the end of round one here. So let's talk about this palate and finish before we wrap up this segment. What do you get, man?
So Matt, your story about your connection, your love for Clarksville kind of reminds me of what we heard from Tim Piersant with Chattanooga Whiskey.
Chattanooga Whiskey.
Yeah,
exactly.
Where Chattanooga didn't really have anything going on, and until they came in and worked and got a lot of city ordinances passed and changed, and really got got the city behind it and really involved in the distillery and everything that it could do for not just the city of Chattanooga, but for the state of Tennessee as well. It seemed like your story really rings true to that connection and that love for your home.
Yeah, 100%. And that Tim's a good friend, and all of us in Tennessee are pretty close in general. But it's been fun growing up alongside them. As they've really made some waves.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm just glad you're inside, because we had Tim on the show a couple of months ago, and he was on his outside porch, and it was light and it was beautiful. And then as it got darker and darker, we could barely see Tim by the light of his laptop computer. It was like, Tim, it's like, where are you, man?
Yeah, that's funny.
Oh, all right, Matt. So jumping back to this whiskey, what do you get, man?
First off, I just got to say, I really like it. It's got this really nice, sharp, pronounced, like cracked wheat kind of spice and heat right up front. Almost would make me think that this had some rye in it. Right. But it is like a touch softer, but there is kind of that like dry, toasted wheat bread kind of like spice or heat that hits right up front. Then some of those wheat mash bill characteristics come through. Pick up like a sweet cherry pie, almost like a toasted pastry dough kind of note on the palate as well. And then the finish to me is just like this luscious, chocolatey malt ball. Just it almost like screams like thick, luscious, like chocolate cake for some reason. It's just like got this really smooth, velvety mouth coat where like all the notes of the palate and the nose kind of come back all in the finish as well. I think this is absolutely delicious. This is like one of the bigger surprises that I've had in a long time, and how much I'm enjoying this. I think it's really, really nice.
Now, Matt, you guys won double platinum with this. Is that right? Is this the one that got double platinum at Ascot this year?
It is. Yeah, it is.
Awesome. That's huge.
Thanks. Yeah, we're super, super proud of that.
Yeah.
You know, you make whiskey and have to wait on it for 5 years, and and you're proud of it, but it's really exciting when other people, guys like yourself, really enjoy it too. So.
Yeah, and again, I echo what Matt said. You know, I like the fact I was talking about that on the palate. We talked about kind of the baked goods, and I thought Matt was talking cherry. I get strawberry-ish kind of red fruit, sweetness, confectioner sugar type of aroma, but also on the palate, I agree. That kind of translates through. I like the fact it carries through from nose to palate. The similarities are there. I was also surprised by the spiciness of it, and would have thought, if I did not know this was a wheated bourbon or wheated Tennessee whiskey, I probably would have thought it was a rye bourbon, just because of that spice level. But great finish on it, man. Just well-rounded, well-balanced. And I agree with Matt. I mean, just it shouldn't be like, oh gosh, I'm so surprised by this. But yeah, I mean, I'm pleasantly surprised, and just a wonderful job with this, Matt, from start to finish, man. Really, really solid whiskey. So congratulations on that.
Thanks so much. And those spice notes, we feel like are really exciting for us, and something that we've kind of noticed as more and more wheated bourbons come around, in the higher proofed wheated bourbons. And so we feel like wheat really starts to shine above 100 proof once you hit that mark. We have a small batch variation that is a blend, is not aged as long as this is, and those notes don't come through like they do on this bottled and bond. So,
yeah.
We think of wheat a lot of time that, like you were saying, you want those higher proofs to cut through some of the mash bill, and you want it to be aged a little bit longer. I know a lot of people say that wheated bourbons usually take to a barrel for a little bit longer and hold up well. But I think this drink's much older than the 5 years.
I agree.
5 year age save. Even on the nose, you could have told me that was 8 to 10 years old.
7, 8 years.
I wouldn't have known any different. I think it drinks the same way too, much older than it is.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yep, for sure. Well, guys, I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break. We're at the end of round one here. We'll get a word from our sponsors. We'll come back and have more with Matt Cunningham, the founder of Old Glory Distilling, in just a second. Welcome to Old Dominick Distillery, a family-owned craft distillery nestled in the heart of downtown Memphis. Founded by descendants of Domenico Canali, a pioneering Sicilian immigrant who made Memphis his home in the late 1800s, Old Dominick is steeped in history and tradition. Old Dominick prides itself on offering a diverse selection of whiskeys to satisfy every taste. Whether you're a seasoned connoisseur or a curious newcomer, you'll find something to love, including an 85 proof Tennessee whiskey, bonded Tennessee whiskey, a single barrel Tennessee whiskey, a 90.1 proof bourbon, and coming this fall, a cask strength bourbon. Each bottle of Old Dominick whiskey is crafted with care, featuring unique mash bills that offer a variety of high and low proofs. This dedication to quality ensures there's a perfect pour for every whiskey enthusiast. Old Dominick whiskeys are proudly distributed in several states, including Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri, Georgia, Arkansas, Illinois, and Mississippi. Can't find us locally? No problem. You can conveniently purchase our products online and have them delivered straight to your doorstep. Ready to explore the world of Old Dominick? Visit our website at olddominick.com to learn more about our history, discover our products, and find a retailer near you. Visit the historic James E. Pepper Distillery, located in the vibrant Distillery District in downtown Lexington, Kentucky. Initially built in 1880 by Colonel James E. Pepper, one of the founding fathers of the bourbon industry, it operated until 1967 when it was shut down and abandoned for over 50 years. After a decade of historical research, the brand was relaunched and the distillery was rebuilt. Distilling resumed on-site in 2017, using the same historic bourbon recipe as when it closed in 1967. The distillery offers a selection of fine whiskeys for tasting and retail purchases, including the award-winning Decanter Bourbon. Intimate guided tours include time in the museum, an up-close look at the grain-to-glass process, and a complimentary tasting. Stop by for an old-fashioned cocktail and see why TripAdvisor ranks the Pepper Distillery as the third best distillery in Kentucky and the #1 attraction in Lexington. Learn more at jamesepepper.com. All right, everybody, welcome back for round 2 of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me here live tonight in the Bourbon Life Studios, otherwise known as my basement, it is my good friend, Matt. Matt, how are you doing out there, buddy?
Mark, I'm doing great out here. You're good in there?
Matt, where are you, man? Do you know?
I'm out there. I'm out here. I'm right here. I'm out there.
Been a long day, right?
Yeah, tell me
it's a long Monday.
It's hot. I think it's too much sun today. I don't know, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, man. No doubt. I'm ready for like October and November. Yeah, can we just skip ahead? I hate to wish away time, but man, I'm just tired of this.
No, we can't skip through the Olympics though.
Okay. Yeah. It has been fun watching some of the Olympics.
Yeah.
I agree. I got to watch the time trials, cycling, you know. Of course, we get to, is it August or September when we want to talk about bicycling. That's another story we're not going to talk about.
That's right.
We skipped over basketball. We're not going to talk about cycling. As much as I'd love to talk about the Welta and Sepp Kuss going for a two-peat. No, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
We are the Bourbon Life Podcast, though, presented by Liquor Barn. That's who we're presented by. We appreciate their support. We appreciate the support of all of our sponsors, everything you do for us. We could not bring you this show each week without our great sponsors. So thank you to all of them for doing what they do for us. Matt, with that said, would you like to tell everybody who we have with us?
Absolutely. Matt Cunningham is the founder of Old Glory Distilling Company in Clarksville, Tennessee, and we got him back here for the second round of the Bourbon Life Podcast. Matt, welcome on back.
Thank you. Glad to be here again.
Yeah, man. Thanks for sticking around. We appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
We've not lost one yet, Matt, so glad you're not the first so far. We still have another round to go, man, so you still have an opportunity.
Yeah.
We'll have a break here in a little bit, so you can still make that mad dash. We'll finish it out without you if you feel like you just got to go. So
I think I'm going to make it.
All right, man. Well, we appreciate that. So this round we got something else poured up. It is another bottled in bond. I'll be a spoiler alert on that one at least. But other than that, Matt, would you like to tell everybody what we're going to be drinking on this second round?
Yeah. So this is our bottled in bond bourbon. Now the mash bill on here totally different from our bottled in bond Tennessee whiskey. This mash bill is a 73% corn, 19% rye, and then 8% malted barley. Also a sweet mash, just like our Tennessee whiskey. All of our products are sweet mashed. This again is also 5-year barrels in here, and so I think of what else. Pot distilled as well. At the time,
Okay.
we were only running a pot still. We didn't start running our column until about 3 years ago. So,
And was this pot distilled the same way with the pot column combo on the same still?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. So just to recap that, it was distilled in a single pass with a 4-plate column, offset, and a deflator as well. Came off the still about 140, and then proof down to 120. I didn't mention that earlier, but our barrel entry proof is 120 for all of our products.
Yeah, I had seen that information out there somewhere. I saw that, and so I was going to ask you. That was going to be a question, but since you brought it up, what kind of drove that? Because 125 is the legal maximum you can go into the barrel for people out there listening. You guys chose 120. What kind of drove that decision, Matt?
Ultimately, we, in the very beginning, like in the first 6 months, when we started laying down barrels, we tried various entry proofs. We did 110, 115, and 120. We ultimately settled on 120. The easy answer would be to say, oh, the flavor profile is just so much better. Well, like, you really don't know that for 5 years until you dump it. But what we did know, ultimately, is that we were going to add less water to this once it was done aging to get it to whatever proof we were going to be bottling it at. And so we're very adamant that we're not going to barrel it at the legal max, just because that is the legal max. We also didn't want to go too low because we think those high proof alcohols really interact well with a barrel. Mm-hmm. And so we were hesitant to start laying down too much below 120, and that's ultimately where we settled on for everything going forward.
Gotcha. Now, when you guys started, you were using smaller barrels, but I think you got away from that like probably 4 or 5 years ago, right? So yeah. I'm assuming this is probably larger barrel distillate.
That's everything? Right. We don't have so Kelvin Cooperage is who we get all of our barrels from. Always have. They're the only cooperage that we've ever used.
Nice.
They've been phenomenal to work with and produce phenomenal barrels, and so very thankful for their partnership. We originally were buying some of their 25-gallon barrels, and we only filled those for I think the first couple of years that we were laying down barrels, and we always knew those were a means to an end until we could get into those 53-gallon barrels.
Right.
They produced great product, but ultimately they were more expensive than the 53-gallon barrels, and they did produce a different product than the 53s did. And so we were coming up on this 2-year mark and started asking ourselves, my gosh, do we want to continue down this 25-gallon path and continue to blend everything in, or what we ultimately decided on was to hone in on what we knew we were going to end up in, and kind of just bite that bullet and realize it was going to take a little bit longer in those 53s, but create a more consistent, better product long term. So
was that a difficult transition to go from those barrels to the 53s and then to work those blends for like you got a small batch that you do? Yep. Was that kind of hard to kind of work all those barrels in together and keep the blend? I'm assuming you blend probably to like a specific profile. Is that correct? Or
and so was it hard? Maybe, but it was fun.
Okay.
And so like that is something that we love is the puzzle of blending, and those 25s. We had to blend them to a profile that we developed, and also be careful about changing a profile, which we knew was going to change when we moved all to 53s. And so that puzzle of making sure that transition was smooth between batch to batch, and not this massive. That was a different whiskey last time than it is now. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. Well, Matt, we're kind of going down the rabbit hole already, and I forgot to talk about the nose. So what do you pick up on the nose on this one, man?
The nose on this is another nose I really quite like. It's got that nice bright corn comes across to me, almost like masa, like fresh tortilla type corn, or like cornbread, like a sweet baked in corn. Then this is one of the first times I feel like I've really picked up like this scent of like lavender on the nose. It, like really nice like lavender floral notes kind of hidden underneath some of the rye, sort of that like rye bread, that bakery type rye note as well, and the corn in there. But to me, there's just like those bright herbs, like lavender, lemongrass, almost like a little rosemary, just like really, really nice, savory, but bright herb notes on it as well. I think the rye is really shining in that regard too. Well, also,
Matt, it's funny because, sorry.
No, go ahead, Mark. I can be done.
No, I was just going to say, because I kept trying to figure out the word. I mean, to me, it was like, oh, is this juniper, which sounds weird to say juniper when you're talking about a bourbon, but there's just those notes. And you said rosemary. I'm like, okay, in my mind, what I'm nosing, what I'm thinking is juniper. It's probably rosemary. I mean, there's an herbal note that's coming through on this bourbon, which I don't normally get. But I really like it with this because you get that sweet corn that Matt talked about. And then there's this really interesting rye influenced note that's very, rosemary. I mean, I think that's a great note, Matt. So thank you for being my conscience and telling me how to translate that. But again, yeah, I mean, another wonderful note. And this one won gold at Ascot, right? So you guys did get some word on this one as well?
Yeah, this one won gold at Ascot, and also at ACSA won a gold as well.
Nice.
This past year, and so we've been submitting this our small batch bourbon. This is our first release of Bottled and Bond. We've been submitting our small batch to ACSA for 2 or 3 years, and couldn't get past the silver. So one of the gold was
nice. Sure enough, led off with a Bottled and Bond, and
and there you go, bumps you right up to the gold. But I get this almost like a toasty, toasted oak or toasted, almost like a vanilla marshmallow sugary type of nose as well on this.
Yeah, the barrels are working hard. I like it. That Calvin Cooperage definitely pays off in spades.
Yeah, I can't say anything else because they're all we've ever used. But my gosh, we're really happy with those barrels, and would be hard pressed to ever even try to use another barrel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got a great partnership, right? And it's worked, and they've been with you forever. So why change something when it works? I mean, that's it's no reason to do that. So Matt, let's talk a little bit about the distillery itself. So you come home from school, you're a fireman, and then you're just like, hey, you know what? I'm going to start a distillery. Talk about that process. I mean, I'd really like to know how that worked for you. You're working 24 hours on, you're 48 off. You're probably busting your ass trying to figure all this out. I mean, can you talk about that whole process of actually starting and creating the whole distillery?
Yeah. So when you're 22 years old, you think you're Superman and you can do anything. And so it was just a matter of putting together a business plan and open it up. What else was there, right?
Sure, yeah.
So put this business plan together, and like all business plans, works perfect on paper. There's not been a business plan ever that didn't work on paper. And so how that came about though was through this rabbit hole that I sent myself down. Not only on the production side, which I absolutely fell in love with, and that's why I wanted to start it, but also on the business side of going and visiting as many distilleries that are on the level as I thought we wanted to get to as I could. And so had a chance to go visit both large and small. One of the most beneficial trips that I took in the whole startup phase was going out to Maxwellton, West Virginia, to visit Smooth Ambler, and spent about a week there with those guys. And it was early on enough where like you could do that, and everybody would be like, "Yeah, cool, come on in." It wasn't quite that easy, but you get what I'm saying. Now it's not quite that easy to go visit places and hang out with them for a week. But learned a lot from those guys, what they were doing, but also learned a lot from the guys in Tennessee who were already up and going. Everybody was really, really, really new who was around back then. There were probably less than 5 distilleries at the time, and I'm putting together this business plan in Tennessee. And so went and got to know those guys in Kentucky. There's MB Roland. Are y'all familiar with Paul Tomaszewski and his wife, Mary Beth?
Yeah.
They're actually, just to kind of put some perspective, about 10 minutes away from where we're at.
Okay.
So, they're right across the border in Kentucky. We're 4 miles from the border of Kentucky in Tennessee. And so Paul was one of the real early guys in Kentucky on a craft scale, and still good friends, and learned a lot from them too. But kind of went off on a tangent there. But
that's all right. It's part of the story, man. You know, it's a good part of your story, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's important. The people that brought you in and helped you. I mean, that's, people talk about that all the time on our show, is how you know, welcoming and inviting the people in the industry have been to help them with things. So I mean, it's a vital part of the whole process, man.
It is, and it is a super fun industry to be a part of because of that camaraderie and that
sure,
that relationship and respect people have for one another, willing to help you out too. So put that business plan together. Tried to get an SBA loan for it, and the SBA likes to see some experience before they'll lend a very ambitious on a very ambitious project. So
wait, you mean firefighter wasn't a good qualification to be a distiller?
Yeah,
Man, damn it!
Yeah,
come on, you play with fire either way, right? I mean, you got to use fire, so it's sort of
true. But after about it honestly was going back and forth with them for about 9 months. Wow. It passed everything up to the Washington D.C. level, and then they politely declined it. So went back to the drawing board there. We have a local bank here, Legends Bank, that we even worked with on this SBA loan, but they ended up taking a larger portion than they were originally going to finance the build out or the building itself. And so they were the ones that made it all happen, not the SBA the first time around.
Darn you, SBA, if you're listening.
They've been helpful since.
Well, okay, all right. Well, thank you, SBA. We appreciate you.
not starting off. After some experience, they let me come back and ask for something else.
Yeah, but that's cool that you pursued it. So here's the thing I have to ask too, because I did my MBA at UK with my law degree, and as part of my MBA, I wrote a business plan about starting a microbrewery here in Lexington. Yeah. Before microbreweries were even a thing, and I was convinced that, man, I was actually going to do that. So, was this anything that came out, because you're a finance guy? Was this something maybe that back in school you're like, maybe this could work? Were you toying around with that idea back then?
It really wasn't, because really up until my senior year, I thought I was going to go work on Wall Street. Like that was
I got you.
That was what I was going to do. And when I realized that it wasn't in my blood, that's when I guess that's when whatever led me down the path got me there. So
when you came back from, so you're young, you're 22 years old, right? So did you start working on the business plan pretty much then, or was it somewhere down the road after you started working as a firefighter?
No, it was probably pretty quick. Probably.
Was it? Okay.
It started off as an idea, just a fun, let me put this together. In school, you put together business plans, like you said. Mm-hmm. And so I'd done it before in class. And so it started off as a fun idea, and then evolved into, okay, this has got to work. Like, it's not just a fun idea. So that business plan exercise was critical, absolutely critical, because you do find yourself not making money before you're actually not making money. So that led to different aspects of the business, where originally it was a distillery, and what it ended up being was a distillery with an event venue built onto it as well, for weddings, receptions, corporate parties, that sort of thing. And that was what helped us keep the lights on for the first 4 or 5 6-7 years before our bourbon really came of age, or we were ready to start distributing it. So.
Gotcha. Now you guys, but you make clear spirits too, right? Do you make some vodka? You make vodka, gin, of course. You're in Tennessee. You got to make moonshine, right? So,
right. Yeah. So those are no longer namesake products. So those don't fly under the Old Glory name.
Gotcha.
We do make those as well. Those are not our bread and butter. It's not what we do day in and day out.
Sure. But I mean, but when you're starting up, were they income producers for you in the beginning? I'm assuming. Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. They just weren't our sole source of revenue either.
Yeah.
So.
And you guys contract distill too. Did I see that? Is that right? You guys work with other brands?
Yeah. And that's been really fun for me. I told you I love the process and making it, and that's something that I've found that has been really fun, is working with some smaller startup brands, going through that process with them, and just giving them our 2 cents of this is what we've learned, and it's an important part of our business that's grown to be a very significant portion of our business. Is contract distilling on a smaller scale. So you read about these contract distillers opening up in Kentucky, especially, that are very, very large. For us, it fits for brands that are maybe less than maybe around 300 barrels a year. Is what they want to lay down. We work with brands that lay down. We do about 1,000 barrels a year for them. So 1,000 is probably about our cap before it makes sense to work with one of the larger guys. But for somebody starting off, it's been a lot of fun, and it's an exercise that I love with all of our clients going through it.
Very cool. Well, Matt, we're at the end of round 2 here, buddy. Let's jump back over to the whiskey and talk about the palate and finish. What do you pick up on this one?
Nice bit of that rye shows up right on the front of the palate. As it opens up more, it's getting a little spicier. I think more of the pepper and the rye spice comes through. But what I initially got was like a lot of herbal tea notes on the front of the palate and on the palate from the rye. Then there was like an orange blossom that came across. I pick up, there's just this like little citrus zest, just like little jump of like floral citrus orange blossom that I came to find. Almost like a clover honey and like nice oak. I think the Calvin barrels really shine in this. They make their presence known. There's a good amount of oak. That toasted quality comes through too. Certainly not overpowering or at all tannic. And it's got a nice, warm, oily finish. It just sticks around. This is really, really nice.
Yeah, I agree, Matt. There's that initial sweetness, and then on the palate or the finish, to me, it almost had a little bit on the kind of like a maple syrupy type of flavor to it. There's a real sweetness that comes through. But you're talking about the orange blossom. I mean, to me, and the oak. To me, that kind of combined, and it was almost like when you take an orange rind and you spark it like you're making an old fashioned, and you flame it, so you get a little bit of like a burnt orange rind. I kind of got that combination flavor, so I got this orange citrus flavor on the palate, but also that oakiness that kind of translated as a little bit of a smoky type of flavor. So that kind of combined in like a burnt orange rind, which sounds kind of weird, but in an old fashioned, it tastes delicious, right? So you mix that with the sweetness of the corn. And again, I mean, another just really wonderful palate on this one, Matt. I mean, you guys, another great job on this one for sure. I'm happy I waited to try these, so it was kind of a surprise to do it.
Yeah, no, it's always fun getting to taste people on your product for the first time, and so I'm super glad that you guys are tasting it the first time live.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it again, and again, this one to me, 2 thumbs up. Matt, what do you think, man?
Yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah, very nice. Well, guys, we're at the end of round 2 here, so I'll tell you what. Why don't we go ahead and take a quick break? We'll get a word from our sponsors, and we'll be back with more with Matt Cunningham, the founder of Old Glory Distilling, in just a minute.
The Stave Restaurant is a bourbon lover's paradise right here in the heart of bourbon country. Located at 5711 McCracken Pike in Millville, Kentucky, between Castle and Key and Woodford Reserve, Chef Kyle Klatka prepares amazing food each day that features an elevated Kentucky-inspired cuisine. With a full-service bar, great bourbon flights, and signature cocktails, The Stave is the perfect place to catch up with friends after a fun-filled day of touring the local distilleries. Be sure to check them out online at thestavekentucky.com or at Instagram and Facebook at The Stave Kentucky. Three Chord's line of whiskeys embody the spirit of creativity. The whiskey is a true collaboration between producer and composer Neil Giraldo and master blender distiller Ari Sussman. The Three Chord team of expert blenders, coopers, and sensory professionals have developed a multi-step process they called Perfectly Tuned Taste. This process begins by carefully selecting the finest bourbon and rye whiskeys from Kentucky, Tennessee, and Indiana, and then blending them together. Find out more about the whiskeys and distribution in your area at www.threechordbourbon.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back for the third and final round of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me here live tonight in the Bourbon Life Studios, it's my good friend, Matt. Matt, how you doing out there, man?
Mark, I am great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Drinking some great whiskey, man.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
I hate to say it's a surprise, but you know what? It's great when you're not familiar with the brand and you get whiskey and it's like, man, this is really good stuff.
Absolutely. I think like you were saying, Mark, sorry to interrupt, but both of us having never tried this before and waiting to try it live on the show, I think it's been fun. It's a great way to do it.
Yeah, I agree 100%, man. So very fun, having a great show tonight. Great conversation with Matt. Oh, damn it. I told everybody who it was, like they don't already know, right? So,
right.
But we are the Bourbon Life Podcast presented by Liquor Barn. We appreciate their support and support of all of our sponsors. I can't bring you this show every week with great guests like we have tonight without their support. So thank you to Liquor Barn and all of our other sponsors. Matt, with that said, go ahead, tell everybody. I've already ruined it, but who's our guest tonight, man?
Our guest this evening, this morning, this afternoon, whenever it is, you are getting your Bourbon Life Podcast fix, is the founder of Old Glory Distilling in Clarksville, Tennessee, Matt Cunningham. Matt, welcome on back for our final round of the Bourbon Life Podcast.
Thank you. I've made it to the.
You did,
That's
man.
right, another survivor.
Woo, man, we're like 234 for 234, Matt. We're doing pretty good,
Wow.
man. Well, we're having a great show, man. Thanks, Matt, for joining us tonight from Clarksville, Tennessee. And we were talking about that a little bit earlier. You're just off the Kentucky border there in Tennessee, so a little bit northwest of Nashville, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, a little bit of a drive from us here. We're here in Lexington, Kentucky, so a little bit of a drive, but not too far away. We'll make you honorary Kentuckians, if you want to. So
I appreciate it. I'll pass.
You'll pass. You'll stick with the Tennessee. I get it. Man, just don't tell me. Don't tell me you went to Arkansas. Please don't tell me you're a UT fan as well.
I'm not.
Okay.
I won't. I'll at least be on your side there.
Okay. All right.
Actually, I'm more of a UK fan. My grandfather was a big UK fan back in the forever, but I remember the Tubby Smith era. And
oh yeah,
that was,
yeah, man,
that was fun for me as a kid, and so always had a spot for UK.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, Tubby was a great coach, man. It's just unfortunate how things played out for him here, but yeah, I think he was a great coach, and a lot of great kids that came. Well, I say kids. I mean, they were kids to me still because I was already out of school, but he seemed like a really nice guy. I never had a chance to meet him, but again, there we go, talking about basketball and bourbon. Damn it. You get SEC guys together, and you can't help that. It just happens, right? How about football?
Man, it's been fun. But
oh man! All right, guys. Matt, let's talk about. We got something special poured up on this third round. We got a little sample bottle here that we're going to be drinking out of tonight. You tell everybody what we're going to have here.
Yeah. So this is a single barrel that we're about to release from our bottle shop. We always keep a couple single barrels in, one of our Tennessee whiskey, one of our bourbon. So, like all single barrels, this is one, as we're putting together our blends, that we thought was super unique. So, we always keep those to the side. And then, like I said, about one at a time, we'll release them. This one, I don't have that bottle in front of me. I've got a sample just like you guys do, but I believe it's 125 proof, which it gains some proof in the barrel. Most all of our barrels do, which in the way they age.
I think this one says, actually, mine says 127.8.
Okay, there you go. That's it.
Yeah.
So
bumping up there, man. 7.8 points. I mean, that's a pretty good jump, right?
Yeah, no doubt. That's one of the higher ones. Our absolute highest has been 128 point something. I can't remember.
Okay.
So definitely one of the higher ones.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Matt, real quick, and I'll just ask this question since we're kind of there. Warehousing wise, you guys have a rick house there, like on site or somewhere close by, or?
So we have a barrel house on site. Holds about 10,000 barrels. The majority of them are palletized. So
okay.
That's always a question, whether they're ricked in a true form or palletized. So most all of our barrels are palletized. We stack 6 high, and with that 6 high stack, you still see or taste and smell those differences in those barrels in just that, I'm gonna call it short stack, from high to low. So
yeah. So 6 stacks, that's 6 pallets of 4 barrels. Is that right?
That's right.
So 6 barrels high.
Yes, that's still 32, 35 foot difference almost from first.
It's true.
Who's driving
first
that
ride.
forklift and pulling
Yeah,
those
no
top,
kidding.
Man, who's God bless.
Your warehouse guys, God bless them.
Yeah, Caleb Martin is his name.
Shoot, man.
Caleb, we salute you.
That's right.
Yeah, I would not want his job, man.
He's a pro. Caleb manages a lot of our warehouse, and he's actually the one pulled this sample and got all these together for you guys too. So
awesome, Caleb. Cheers to you, man. Thank you so much for doing that,
Caleb.
for sure. Matt, what do you pick out on this one? Oh wait, before we do that though, same mash bill, right? This is the bourbon, same mash bill as what we had before, right? So, what was it? 19%.
19%
rye.
Yeah, 73.198, right?
73.198. Yeah. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that.
No
what do you pick up on the nose on that one, man?
So the nose on this one goes 2 different ways to me. I can see why this would be a single barrel, because it leads with really great, like traditional, nice sweet corn, kind of that soft corn, but really amplified, I think, from the bottled and bond, with it being at barrel strength at 5 years. So just like that, those sweet corn notes and sort of that like dusty corn note is amplified. But then to me, it takes another turn and goes to a much sweeter side. It has like all the components of a Snickers minus the chocolate. There's like a nuttiness. There's definitely, I pick up like some nougat or like some vanilla taffy, like this like almost briny saltwater taffy or nougat note on the nose with it. There's that nuttiness, but then there's also like rich caramel coming across too on it. And like finishes out with the sweetness, like cherry, like dark black cherry, or like a cherry syrup almost on the end of the nose. Just like really amplified, really, all the flavors are really, really bright and vibrant.
You know, Matt, it's funny because it's like every time I go back in, something else jumps back out at me. Like I'm picking up more oak on this one. Obviously, I mean, it's the higher proof, right? So I'm picking up more oak, but it was coming across, you know, the cherry comes through. It's almost like a cherry Dr. Pepper. You know, I get that kind of a cola kind of flavor to it, which is that sweetness you talk about, that it's sweeter than the other one, the bottled and bond. And to me, that's just kind of translating not as like a candy bar type of sweetness, but like a soda. It's almost like a Dr. Peppery, but that cherry does come through. So it's almost like a cherry Dr. Pepper, but you know, a very, very pleasant nose. It doesn't come across on the nose at 127 proof at all to me. I don't know, Matt, what do you think?
No, I wouldn't.
Picking up high proof?
It definitely it has a punch, but I wouldn't say.
Yeah, but it's not almost 130 proof, right? Matt, anything else we missed on that? Any other notes on there?
No, that was. I love walking through this stuff with you guys, and
yeah,
and picking it up.
Awesome. Well, man, you know, you talked about it earlier, and I wanted to come back to us. I kept writing notes like, don't forget, you know, and I flipped over the page and I'm like, wrote it back down again. So the sweet mash, that was just kind of blew my mind at the very beginning. We talked about that. We didn't go into depth about it, but that's a huge decision to make from a production standpoint for you guys. Can you, number one, just kind of talk about what that process means, but then number 2 also talk about how you guys do that process and why it's important to you.
Yep. So real quick, sweet versus a sour mash. Sour mash, super traditional, where you're adding what's called backset coming off of the still from a prior distillation. So it's all of the leftover, all of the leftover spent mash that goes out to cattle farms. You add some of that back into your next cook, and what that does is it acidifies the mash itself and creates an environment that is harder for bacteria to grow. And so when there was not modern day ways of keeping things extremely clean, that sour mash process was a critical process in fermenting and fermentation. And so with the sweet mash process, there is no backset added back to a batch to sour it or to acidify it. And so what it requires is that all of our equipment and our processes be extremely clean. And so that is one of the things that we're super proud of is the cleanliness and sanitation that we have to do in between every batch. And ultimately, why we chose to go with that sweet mash recipe is we didn't want to let ourselves get away from us, and let ourselves go, I guess. In that aspect.
So kind of a follow-up question to that, talking about pot still, because with a pot still, you basically run batch after batch. So that makes sense. Sometimes you run a batch, you clean out your pot, you run another batch, but you're distilling on a column still now, correct?
Correct. And so just to back up for a second, the sweet mash versus sour mash is dealing with the cooking process.
The cooking, not the distilling. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Yep.
And so
we'll forget that question.
No, but that leads right into it. So with the pot still, that back set is available after the run with no alcohol left, and then on the column it's continuous. And so
right. Okay.
The continuous flow of it, and for us, it all goes straight to a farm.
Nice. Very, very nice for sure. So, talking about the transition, because what we're drinking right now, this is all pot distilled, correct? Even the single barrel, is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Anything?
So you've been laying stuff down. How long have you been laying distillate down with the column?
For 3 years. And so we just released last week actually our very first small batch, which is a straight small. It's a straight bourbon. With some of that column product in it. And so we're just now starting to release some of it. We started laying it down 3 years ago. And so there's another slight transition of the flavor profile. But we were surprised at one, how close of a flavor profile we were able to get in just the distillate coming off the still between the two. Now, that being said, there is a difference without question of column versus pot. And what we found for our own products is that the column distillate has a lot more depth right off the bat. And it's not as clean and sharp as our pot still runs were. So we're really excited about what they're doing in the barrel.
Yeah, the funny thing is, people talk about pot distilled whiskey, and we've talked about it on the show. Sometimes there's people describe it as the funk. There's this pot distilled funkiness, right? Does that make? Have you heard that, Matt? You heard that term?
Yeah, and I don't know totally where it comes from.
Yeah. Okay.
But question for you guys: would you guys think that funk comes more from product that needs more time to age, or do you think it's just in general?
I think it can come both ways. I think there's certainly a lot of times with a product that needs more time to age, especially if it's off a pot still, that funk just comes across like wrong. Maybe wrong is not the correct word to say, but just like it doesn't tie together. There's these off-putting flavors that don't fit with the rest of the profile of what you're drinking. Whereas when the funk is funky right, it's like it's just good. It's like the edges are a little bit ruffled on like the side of the profile, but it all works. Like they play well with kind of like the base flavors, but here there's like this weird kind of off note, but you can see where it's coming from. And it just like, it has this like weird oily pot still, like everything tastes great, but oh my God, like what is that? What is that? But in like the best way possible, where if it's too young, you're kind of like, I don't know whether to drink it or tell it to get off my porch.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a great explanation, Matt. I mean, you think about it, because when you get a pot distilled whiskey, I mean, you're not coming off on a column where you can distill it higher and you can strip out some of those different congeners and some of the oils and things. Pot distill, you're getting kind of a fuller, distillate coming off of there, I believe. I think that may be a way to describe it. You're getting more of the oils and more of the congeners in there. And I think if it is underage, I agree with you. I think it's a dual process, right? So if it's coming off with all those extra things in there that you're not necessarily pulling off of a column still, then you put it in a barrel and you don't let it rest. You don't let it mature long enough. Then I think you run the risk of those somewhat potentially off-putting, funky flavors and aromas coming through. But if you leave it in the barrel long enough, I think, like Matt said, it can round it out, but you still have maybe a little bit of that ruffled feather on the edge, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, in my personal opinion, comes from the tail end of a run. And so, for that super funk, that really funky whiskey, sometimes, personal opinion only, I think maybe ran a little bit too long into the tails, and should have went ahead and cut it. So.
Yeah, that's a tough production decision to make, though, right? Sometimes if you're running good, and then all of a sudden, like, where is that hard cut?
It is, and and it's subjective when you're running a pot still. It's so that's why that consistency of who's running it is so key.
Yeah,
and so something else that's fun though is even like you make that cut, but you still collect all of your tails. You still run them all out, and after 10 distillations, you've got enough tails to run on their own. So have you guys tasted any Queen Share before? Familiar with that term at all?
I never have.
I've never heard it, but I have a feeling where you're kind of going there. Yeah. Tell us what it's...
So it's all of the tails, which are loaded with flavor, that you add to the pot, or not add to the pot. You put them in the pot on their own after you've collected them for 10 runs or so, and then you run that distillation, collect a heart's cut out of it from that tails only distillate, and I mean, it is extremely flavorful. It is the Queen Share for a reason. There's hardly any of it, and that only comes from a pot still. On the column, there's no true tails that you're collecting. So it's a very unique product. It's stuff that we release as single barrels. So.
Oh, cool. Interesting. Yeah. I've never heard that term before, man.
Yeah, so in 4.5 years here of chatting with master distillers and representatives from all sorts of different distilleries on all sorts of different equipment, this is the first we've heard of that.
Very cool.
Yeah, well, that's cool. That it's something new, but it's also something super rare. Like that, you're not going to see it on the shelf in a store. There's not enough of it.
Mm-hmm. So, right. Well, that makes sense. Definitely makes sense. So, Matt, let's talk a little bit about the future, the brand. Anything exciting? Well, let's talk about some things going on first before we jump to the future. You've got some things that have gone on with the distillery there, your site, new restaurant and things going on. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. So, to start off, we started on a pot still, making a barrel a day. Added a column about 3 years ago. That during that time, we built our first barrel house. That's what we're in now. I think I mentioned earlier it holds about 10,000 barrels. That barrel house also holds our bottling facility. And then few years ago, a little over 2 years ago, my wife Shannon and I, were just talking about what is next for the brand, and we were running an event venue at the time, weddings, receptions, corporate parties, and we were asking ourselves, is that the best thing that we can do for our brand to involve the local community and to create, this destination? And ultimately the answer was no. And so went down a path of trying to figure out if we could pull together a restaurant concept to support that brand, and to create a home place for Old Glory, where people that were traveling, our local community, could come out to and really experience it. And so over the past couple of years, that project was led by my wife Shannon, and pulled this all together. So we closed our event venue, completely gutted it, took it back down to dirt inside of it, and rebuilt it out from the shell into a really unique branded restaurant that opened in February. And so it's obviously got a great bar with some great cocktails featuring our spirits, but also a menu centered around some smoked meats with some really fun dishes, and ultimately just a great way to pair a great whiskey with a great meal. So that's
awesome, man. Congratulations on that.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and really fun getting to welcome more people onto the campus.
Yeah, so I was going to say, so the community there, I mean, you're in Clarksville, you said like 180,000, something like that?
Probably about 180,000 right now.
Okay.
Big military community. Clarksville's, we like to say it's home of the 101st Airborne Division.
Okay.
Fort Campbell, the post office is in Kentucky, so it's Fort Campbell, Kentucky. But Fort Campbell, Clarksville are very synonymous. And so the military is a big part of our community. And
nice.
We love being able to support those guys.
Oh, and and I forgot, we were talking about it off camera, and I forgot, because you were saying something about the name, that it's not really necessarily tied into that. And then I said, oh, I'm going to ask you about the name, and I forgot. So tell us about the name Old Glory.
Yeah. So when we were starting the distillery, we wanted to set our brand back in an era where something we like to say, where people gave a damn. That's one of our sayings is give a damn. And that 1940s World War II era was a time where the country was united, and everybody was kind of, seemingly anyway from the history books, in it together, and all all with one another. And so we loved a lot of the aspects of that generation, and so we kind of refer to that as this old glory generation. And obviously Old Glory has a name associated with the flag, but more than that, we wanted to create a brand that embodied the values that we embody ourselves, but also ones that we feel a lot of the country does as well as we grow for the next 100 years. And so there was no one aha moment. It was not necessarily named after the American flag or anything, but kind of a little bit about where that name kind of evolved. Yeah.
Nice. Very, very cool. Appreciate that. Yeah. So what about the future now that we can get back to that?
Yeah.
Going back to the future. What about the future? Anything coming up, release wise, anything else exciting with the distillery coming up that you can share with us?
Yeah. So, we've always had some fun, with our pot still in particular, making some really cool products and laying them down in barrels. And, so, there's some, fun products coming around, whether it's some rye whiskey that our guys are just dying for us to release.
Okay.
Really. So we'll be doing that soon. But overall for us, we've hit a point, where we've got a very consistent supply, and significant supply of whiskey that we've laid down, that we're starting to distribute for the first time. So, right now you can really only find our product in the Middle Tennessee market through Nashville. And so this year and next year, we're making a push where you'll start seeing our product pop up in stores in the region, the Tennessee, Kentucky region, that hasn't been available. It's only been available in our local market.
Gotcha. Are you guys doing any type of online distribution at this point, or
through our website? You can get a select number of our products, not all of them. And it is through a third-party retailer, so Tennessee doesn't allow shipping. So it is third-party that is shipped through. But we're trying to figure out a way to be able to get product out to people in other states.
Gotcha. Everybody just needs to go to Clarksville and visit you guys, man.
We'd love for we'd love for everybody. Definitely spend a day out at the distillery, but also out back in our silo park. We have live music on Friday, Saturdays, and a big 40-foot silo that we converted into a bar. Nice. Yeah, awesome. It's a lot of fun.
That would be great. So Matt, let's jump back over to the whiskey real quick. We're at the end of the episode, man, unfortunately, but we need to talk about this whiskey a little bit that we're drinking here. What do you pick up, man, in terms of the palate and the finish on this?
It is big and bold right on the palate. I've got to say, it definitely steps up in the proof. Nice and spicy. I get that rye spice, peppercorns right up front. Then there's like a hot chili spice that I pick up. Just that like vegetal chili spice, almost like chili powder or chipotle, just a little less smoky. But nice. I really enjoy that flavor. Then it leads into like pie crust or kind of those rye bread type notes before the oak and the toast from that barrel really round out the back end of the palate. Finishes super long, just like warm oak, pepper, spice, a little bit of like hot honey, think like almost hot toddy, like kind of coming down the line where it's just like you're drinking that nice honey. There's bourbon. It's just warm all the way down the throat, good and oily. It's really, really lovely.
Yeah, I agree, Matt. I mean, it's great. It's just, it's sweet, but it's intensified, from that bottled and bond that we had. Everything kind of stands out. I mentioned on the nose, I didn't think it nosed at 127, but man, as soon as you take that drink, it's like, oh yeah, there's that 127 proof. I found it. It's there. It's not overwhelming. Doesn't melt your face. Matt, I like the fact you talked about the vegetal spiciness. We've talked about that before on the show, and I can see exactly what you mean by that. So, and I agree. That's a good call on that one. The finish does linger on this one for quite a while. It's like 30 seconds since I had my last drink, and I'm like, yeah, man, it's still there. It just lingers. Very nice. Just like the first two whiskeys we had. I mean, everything's just really well rounded on this. Nothing stands out. And again, from a pot distilled spirit, I think I went into this just expecting that funkiness. Something was going to jump out and just be funky. And it sounds weird to say that, man, but I just had that preconceived notion that there was going to be something that kind of stood out that was not off-putting, but just different. And I really don't detect that, Matt. So very nice, man.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. So I always like to ask my guests before we wrap up the show, what has been the best part of this journey for you so far?
Probably going through it with my family, to be honest. Just real quick, my dad was a contractor all of his life, and my brother Wes and I got to build our original facility where we're still at, the first building with him, and we built that out together, and that was a lot of fun. Right before we opened is where I met my wife in our event venue.
Wow. Okay.
So she's been right there with us the whole time, and now works right with us every day. She's without question works harder than anybody else in the building, and that whole experience has really been a joy. We're a true family business in every aspect, and we've got a year and a half old that he comes to work with us most days, and
nice.
It's a lot of fun. So that's probably some of the most enjoyable things about it. And in addition to the literal family that is there, most of our employees, which we don't call employees or team members, they are more family than teammates.
Sure.
So it really is a lot of fun going to work every day.
Well, I mean, that's awesome. I was going to ask you about finding your products, but you've already told us about that, which is great. So I don't think we really have much more to add to it tonight here. Any final thoughts though, Matt, before we wrap it up?
Myself or the other Matt?
You, Matt. Matt from Old Glory. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I just appreciate y'all having me on. Want to welcome you guys to come down for a visit one day. Love to show you around.
Sure.
And your viewers and listeners too. This is one of it is my joy of what we do every day, and it's always fun to get to share it with everybody, especially in person. So.
Great. Oh, I do have to ask, where can people get more information about you guys?
Yeah, the best place is definitely our website at oldglorydistilling.com. Our social media is pretty active on Instagram and Facebook too, so that's always fun to follow. We do have a newsletter as well that's on our website, so that's always fun. That's where we send out new release information and some more in-depth content too.
Okay, great. All right, Matty boy, my Matty. Any final thoughts before we close it up, man?
Matt, this has been an absolute treat. Thanks for sitting down with us, our listeners, and talking us through your story, what you all have been doing, and sharing your delicious, beautiful products with us. I'm absolutely impressed, like 100% impressed with what you all are doing, the story behind it, the quality that you're putting into it, your knowledge behind all of this and what you're doing. It's certainly not lost on us. I hope our listeners see the knowledge and also the passion and the love that you have for this, for your community down in Clarksville and your whole team at Old Glory. So it's not lost on us.
Thanks. I appreciate hearing that. That means a lot.
Yeah. And I think I have to just reiterate that aspect of it. Matt, there's a lot of guys out there that talk about wanting to do something in life and they want to change things. They want to be a part of something. They want to create something. And a lot of it just ends up being talk. And a lot of guys don't take that risk. They and gals, I shouldn't say just guys, but a lot of guys and gals talk about, initiating change, doing something that they're passionate about, and they just never do it. But you did it. And you're being very successful at it. And that's great to see. And like Matt said, I mean, you can tell you're very passionate about it. And I think that's a huge indicator as to how successful you'll end up being, because you do have the passion and the drive to make this happen. So, there was nothing there, and you've created something and you built it into something, and kudos to you for doing that, man. So well done. And again, have to echo what Matt said. Great whiskey. I mean, I'm really happy that we did not taste this beforehand and got to sample it with you live here on the show tonight. So great stuff, man. You guys are doing a great job. We would love to come down and check you guys out, hang out, and see what you're doing down there, meet you in person, and get to spend some time with you, man. So
Absolutely.
I think it'd be great.
Anytime.
Right.
Anytime.
Awesome. Well, Matt, thank you so much. All right, guys, we are the Bourbon Life Podcast presented by Liquor Barn. We appreciate their support, the support of all of our sponsors. We couldn't bring you the show every week without all of them. So thank you all for everything you do. To you, our listeners, thank you guys for tuning in. Like Matt always says, whatever time of day it is, morning, noon, or night, whenever it is you get your Bourbon Life fix. We appreciate you taking the time to join us and listen in. If you want to reach out to us, you can do that at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook at The Bourbon Life. We have the private Facebook group, The Bourbon Lifers. We'd love for you guys to join us in there. A lot of great conversations, some fun things going on. So check that out as well. Don't forget our buddy, Big Tex, as Matt likes to call him, or Big Chief. He's doing the Whiskey Trip podcast. He's under our umbrella, put out a new show every Tuesday. So be sure to check that out, the Whiskey Trip. He's also on Instagram and Facebook. So give him a like and a follow. We'd really appreciate that. With that said, I'm going to wrap it up. Send us home with our tagline, which is, may your glasses always be full, and may you keep on living the Bourbon Life.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. Our mission at the Bourbon Life is simple: to share our passion for all things bourbon with you every week. And we'd really love to hear your thoughts on how we're doing. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at The Bourbon Life. You can also contact us by email at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. And you can always find us on your favorite podcast platform. If you have a moment, we'd love it if you would rate us and give us a review. So until next week, we hope your glass is always full and that you keep on living the Bourbon Life.
Welcome to the kitchen table at James B. Beam Distilling Company, where every visit is a celebration of tradition and flavor. Did you know that the kitchen table is nestled right within the heart of the distillery? That's right. You can experience the essence of James B. Beam's legacy while savoring their delectable dishes. Join them every Wednesday through Sunday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. for a culinary journey like no other. Planning a special event? Let the kitchen table be your host, creating unforgettable memories for you and your guests. And don't miss their exclusive Behind the Beam tour and monthly Claremont Supper Club events, which will feature Baker's 13 at the August 15th event. For more information and reservations, visit beamdistilling.com. The kitchen table at James B. Beam Distilling Company. Come as a friend, leave as family.